Hello everybody, it's me, your mate Elliott from ETJ English, and I'm here today to give you a lesson all about tea. It's empty. It's empty. So you'll know from one of my recent lessons where I talked about kind of the most important ways of sounding more British if you're a non-native speaker and you're trying to improve your British pronunciation. The letter T is one of the most important things. We mustn't forget our T's. But it's a bit of a tricky situation because sometimes natives do pronounce the T and sometimes we don't. Today I'm focusing on how you can sound more British instantly by pronouncing the T more often. Really, really important that you do this if you want to sound more British. Now, before we get into the lesson, we do have something in English called the glottal T. It's in British pronunciation, and for example, instead of saying British, I could say British. British. Now, it's quite complicated, and I have a full lesson explaining how we do the glottal T in my pronunciation course, which you can join in the description box below. What we're doing to create the glottal T is we're tightening a section of our throat, known as the glottis. And what we do is we cut a sound out. So for example, instead of saying British, we're cutting after the vowel sound I, we're cutting it out with our throat, with the glottis in our throat. And what that does is it creates almost a muted, fake sound. Now this is a really advanced technique, and this is the advice I'm going to give you. Don't do the glottal T until you've formed a habit of pronouncing the T a lot more. The reason why I say this is because the glottal T can sometimes cause more problems than we need. So try to focus on pronouncing your T's more first to sound more British. Then you can sound extra British once you've formed that habit, and you can start training yourself to drop your T's more. Particularly at the end of words. You heard me then, I didn't say at the end of words, I said at the end of words. So at the end of words it's okay, but in the middle of words I still recommend trying to pronounce your T's when you can. Which leads me on to these example sentences I'm going to give you today, and they're going to make you sound more British, less international. So firstly, let's take a look at this example. I'm so happy that I passed my exam. I'm so happy that I passed my exam. Now, the reason why I've included this sentence is because first we have connected speech. And something which lots of non-natives do is they learn the American style of connecting a T. And they would say, that I. And what they're doing is they're changing the sound of the T to more of a D sound. That I. Now that's American. It's not British. So, that I. If you start pronouncing your T's when you join that and I, or a word which finishes with a T and the next word begins with a vowel, trust me, you're instantly going to add more British, less international, less American to your accent. So try it with a few different things. Now the reason why I included the word past, that I passed, it's because we have something called a consonant cluster here. Past. Another great way of practicing pronouncing your T's is by practicing consonant clusters. Again, there's a whole chapter about this in my course if you decide to join. But essentially what we're doing is we're creating the S sound, then we need to cut it off with the T sound. Past. Past. So imagine you're doing a long S sound and then you want to finish it, complete it, delete it with a T sound. Past. Practice the sentence with me. I'm so happy that I passed my exam. Now imagine somebody asks you, how are you? Well, my response is usually, yeah, I'm good, thanks. What about you? What about you? British English, what about? What about? T is joining to the schwa sound at the beginning of the next word. What about? Don't get confused with water. I know somebody would be immediately starting to write in the comments, that sounds like water. It doesn't. The vowel sound is different. Water, water. But you could use it as a reference. What about you? Now, with the word about, I'm going to give you two options. You can pronounce the T, or you don't have to. You could say about and drop the T, but make sure you're tightening that glottis part of your throat, about, because if you just do about, that doesn't sound right. You have to create the tension in your throat for the glottal T. Or just say about, because it tends to add more of a British effect for a non-native speaker if you do pronounce those T's in the beginning. Then we can start getting better with other techniques to sound more native. So one more time, I'm good, thanks. What about you? If you are trying to improve your intonation at the moment, replay that sentence a few times. Just keep going back and replaying and practice the way I go up and down and just try and improve on that as well. That will help you with your intonation when you're asking questions. Next one. I went to the library. I went to the library. I went to the library. So we're not pronouncing the T at the end of went. Went to the library. That's because went finishes with a T. And the next word begins with a T. So we're actually just going to pronounce one T, kind of merge them together. Went to the library. I went to the library. Went to the library. Also notice how it's not pronounced as library. In British English, library. Library. So I went to the library at lunchtime. Make sure you get that T in there. Lunchtime. Cht. So we've got ch and t. Lunchtime. But I couldn't find the book I wanted. But I, so again, not but I, like an American, it's but I. But I couldn't, I didn't pronounce the T at the end of couldn't. Again, because it's more natural for me. But it's up to you. You could pronounce the T if you wanted to. But I couldn't, or but I couldn't. It's up to you. But if you're doing couldn't, you have to know how to tighten that part of your throat and cut the sound out. But I couldn't find the book I wanted. Wanted. Okay, make sure you get that. Another issue people have is pronouncing the ID at the end of words which finish with ED. So people think that it's wanted, but it's wanted. Wanted in this situation. Imagine it's spelt T-I-D. That's how we pronounce it. Tid. Wanted. I went to the library at lunchtime, but I couldn't find the book I wanted. But I couldn't find the book I wanted. Also, when I said at lunchtime, as you could see, I didn't pronounce the T at the end of at. You could say at, or you could say at. Again, it's up to you. And one more thing, a word which I hear pronounced wrong by people who are trying to do a British accent all the time is the word whatever. Too many people join my British pronunciation course and they pronounce the word whatever and the word British as whatever and British. Obviously, that's not what we want to do. We want to say whatever and British. So, I want you to create a sentence in the comments below with both the words whatever and British included. And I want you to share them with everyone so we can all make a practice sentence that we can use together to practice the word whatever and British and make sure we're pronouncing them with a T when we do practice it. And there you go. Now you should understand a bit better about when we can and when we can't pronounce the T. Generally, the rule is you can and you can't. There are some situations where you have to. There are some situations where you could use the glottal T. Usually I recommend just at the end of words for now. But to create an overall more British pronunciation, right now, if you're trying to change your accent, try to focus on pronouncing your T's as much as you can. And then when you get a bit better with the vowels and everything else, then we can start looking at dropping your T's, using the glottis more, and just generally making your pronunciation advanced British. And of course, we can do this step by step together over WhatsApp and through the videos and downloadable files in my pronunciation course, etjenglish.com. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the lesson today. It's been a pleasure, as always. And don't forget, you can also get some listening practice by checking out my podcast in the description as well. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you soon. Take care. Cheers, guys. Bye.